then you'll let the person know, what 3 that you did, and you'll have the ability for some feedback in that. So basically what you're doing is learning to calibrate beamers. Do you know what a beamer is?
We're learning
to calibrate beamers. So in other words, a beamer for confusion, right? Learning to be able to see how somebody does a beamer. Do that face again, Jenny. Okay, so that might be, yes, that would be definitely a beamer for confusion for sure.
No longer beams up here, huh?
Okay, so now a behavioural manifestation of an internal response that's involving happiness absolutely would be involving a smile, wouldn't it? Okay, so if you really were wanting someone to be happy and that they were remembering a happy experience, you would be looking at their face, whilst they were there, because if they were inside and all of a sudden you saw just a little smile coming on their face, more likely in fact that they are accessing that. And that's your evidence. That's what you are really going on. You are looking to see what the response is that you're getting back. Okay, always. That's what you're always doing. Okay, so this is a little exercise to sharpen this up, okay, and to understand some things about it. So now what you're going to do is break into groups of 3. Annie and Tanya and Libby, you're going to be 3, and then you 3, and then you 3. Ken can go over, take Annie's spot, and Annie can be with Ali. Okay.
What's that be for?
Okay, so is everybody aware of what you're going to do? Okay, so now A is going to pick 3 of these states here, okay, and you're going to do one, and then once everybody's got that, then you'll do the other, and then when everybody's got that, then you'll do the other, and then you'll check back with the B and C, find out what they detected, find out if that's true. That was the thing, in fact, that you were wanting to elicit. That you were listening.
Like somebody would go, they would just pick one of these, and they would just do that beamer, and then the other people would say what they think it is.
Yes, and then you do another one,
okay,
and then I'll see what it is, and then you do another one, and I'll see what it is, and then you check it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So let's just get into 3s now to do this.
Right.
Right.
Tree of us. Tree of us.
Okay.
So we might go here.
Okay, so now for the groups that have finished doing this, right, what I'd like you to do now is to ask a person a question which they can say yes to, alright? And whilst you're asking the person the question, what I'd like you, the other 2 people to be doing is watching this person to see what it is that they're doing with themselves when they're talking about something which they can say yes to. So as you're understanding what the analogue of that is. And then ask a question which the person is going to say no to. And then watch the analogue and see what this person does with their analogue. So for instance, now that we went through this, Dave did, the last one that I saw Dave do was confusion, alright? So now if ever I see Dave kind of, do that again, Dave, what you did. If you see him moving like this, right, you know for sure it's quite possible that it's involving confusion. Okay? Alright. Okay, so ask the person a question they can say yes to and be watching what their analogue is and how they use their body. Ask a person a question they say no to and watch their body movements, okay? And find out relate with each other what it is that you find out as far as the analogue is concerned. Okay. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about what it was that we came up with. So did anybody calibrate something that was quite funny, that really was something else maybe? Did anybody calibrate something on you that was something else? Or did everybody calibrate exactly?
We had some funny ones.
Okay, can you...
where's that list?
Here you go.
Oh, the one that Johnny was doing trance, and I thought it was...
trance, yes.
Yeah, I thought it was curiosity.
You're kidding.
I thought it was trance blank stare.
And then...
Okay, so did you calibrate... Did you see the difference between trance and curiosity? So that when John was curious, there was a difference actually between when he's curious and when he's in trance.
No, we didn't do that.
Okay, so that would be
The
good to
next
find that one out, especially you being his wife.
Yeah.
Because if he's curious, you don't want to be thinking, holy shit, he's in trance.
Snap out of your
Okay.
And then Ned did one that I knew what it was, but Johnny thought it was something totally different, remember? Ned did, I think Ned did curiosity, and Johnny thought it was something like
Johnny thought-
acceptance or
yes.
something. You remember?
So curiosity and acceptance. Okay, so they're both involving something coming to the person, acceptance and curiosity, seeking, open. So there's some things that are similar about those two states. Curiosity and what was it?
I think that's what it
And
was.
acceptance. Curiosity and acceptance. Yes, there's probably quite a degree of similarity between those two.
Curiosity was confusion.
It was confusion, that's why it was fun.
Curiosity was confusion. Okay, so now isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I think that's similar.
Curiosity and confusion, they may be, however, that's a good example that this one came out, because isn't that interesting that here someone could be sitting and they've got a face that's absolutely a face of curiosity for the person, right? And then the other people up the front, they're looking at you and they're wondering, oh my God, this person's in a state of confusion, when actually that's not true at all. The person's in a state of curiosity. So
Isn't that a lesson there?
So that's this is, mind reading occurs out there quite a bit actually, right? And so that's part of the exercise, the sense that this does occur out there, that sometimes you can be thinking that a person's got their brow furrowed and they're really concentrating on something, and somebody looks and thinks that maybe it's really quite something involving seriousness. Okay. What about...
I had a question about the difference between integration and trance. I was trying to use an example of that for my partners.
Okay. Well, I saw Dave do a very good one, or someone over in their group do a very good one. Dave, for integration, just brought his hands together like that.
Okay, well,
That's unmistakable. That is absolutely... Yeah, okay. Okay. So the major thing that gave integration away in this situation truly was the hand movements coming together like that. And you could see the person was in a state of flow, and then that was happening there. Okay.
So what would something more subtle for integration?
Well, I lick my lips for integration.
Yes, that can be integration. Another type of integration actually can be the hands coming together, just how the hands come together actually. Certainly if you saw them coming together symmetrically out in front, with each finger in a mirror-like light, touching each other's finger, that would absolutely be integration, but certainly this could be integration too.
I think Jenny was right on when she...
Lip to lip.
How is that integration?
Because assimilation.
Because for me,
Yes.
when I thought about if I really understand something, I feel like I'm taking it in.
Yes, because integration often involving feelings of success, completion, simulation is the word Ned used, which is very good in fact. So mostly when people are successful, they're usually tasting it. So a good idea for you, the public speakers, that you have the ability to be licking your lips every now and then and tasting the things you're saying. If you're imagining that the words you're speaking are tasteful, more than likely they are actually tasty what you're saying.
One of the things that I've noticed, my mother always, when she was working on her sewing machine, she would stick her tongue out a little bit and bite it. And I noticed later as I grew up that when I was working on the sewing machine, I would do the same thing. And I asked her about it. She said, oh, her father
Yes.
used to do that when
That's
he
right.
was...
Okay, so the reason why is because when the tongue is poking out like this is going into kinesthetic. So like a young child who's got a little bit of Down syndrome or something like that, mostly you'll see them, they've got to do something and they really put their tongue out actually, because it's accessing kinesthetic componentry.
That's like a challenge. Yeah.
Or you'll notice that they're doing stuff right with their tongue out actually. They're doing all kinds of things with their tongue out like that, okay?
Why is that?
Yes.
they really tracked Michael Jordan, because when he first really started getting popular, anytime Michael got near the lane and had the ball and dribbling it, if his tongue came out, he was going for a slam.
Yes.
And slow motion showed he's going to slam. The tongue came out of his mouth. And he wants to drive the Bulls game, watch him. I mean, if he's driving, he's going for a slam or going up for a dunk, that tongue comes out.
Yes.
That is excellent. The sports world is tuning into that type of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's to say, it really,
When David,
that's what mannerism is.
Yes.
when David water skis, like he's really going into a water ski thing, like this. All these photographs we have of him, he's just laid out with this huge rooster tail behind him, his elbows almost in the water. Just look on his face, he's just like, he got, what do you do again? He like,
Well,
come on, David.
we went out to get photographs. We had zoom lenses and everything, and I was just doing all these most intense water ski shots, right? Huge rooster tails of water and everything. When we got the shots back, most of the shots when I was like really laid down horizontal on the water, I had my tongue out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that in our society, sporting events are excellent ways to see how people prepare for success or taste success, because the tongue is used constantly in every baseball, basketball, football.
Yes,
I mean, you do learn to keep it in because of the
Because
well, the social but also the people when you have.
Yeah. When kids are jumping on the trampoline, you have to teach them. Andy, when he first started jumping, he'd start going, and then if they do something wild on the trampoline, he'd hear his tongue, and so he learned to keep it in. But he used to do that. He used to get ready to do a big jump.
Okay, so each of us, in fact, if we're asked to do something kinesthetically, more than likely there'll be possibly some tongue involvement, to stimulate that part of the motor movements, to do something. All right. Okay.
That's really curiosity.
So what would be the usefulness of asking a person a question that they're going to say yes to, and asking the person a question they're going to say no to? What would be the usefulness of doing that?
See what your analog is, so that later on if you're asking them a question, you can watch their analog rather than listening to hear the yes or no.
Yes, because if you were listening to hear a yes, and you were hearing a yes, what's possible?
Well, the analog may be the opposite.
Right.
Well, that just means it's incongruent.
It means that not that one is matter to the other when they're happening simultaneous, but whatever comes before it always is important, right, to whatever happens afterward. But not if something's happening simultaneous, like in the past, like Gregory Bateson, in his book Steps to an Ecology of Mind, most of the people, as psychologists, all thought that when you saw somebody saying no, and they were nodding their head yes, okay, but they were saying no, I don't feel like doing that today, and yet they're nodding their head. Most of these people thought, well, the body language is yes, so we're going to say that that's meta, meaning above what it is we're hearing, and that's not true. What's true is that when you're seeing something happening simultaneous is that there's two things, mostly that both things are sharing an energy that's the same, not that one is meta to the other. If somebody said that they're not going to go and do that, and then you saw them nodding their head, yes, they were, sequentially, the piece of what they said first was that they're sensing they're not going to do something. However, there is another piece of them that indicating that they're feeling that they are going to go and do this.
Andy does that.
Yes.
Andy will say no, that he's not going to do something, but then I don't know what it is I pick up, but I pick up that he is, and a few minutes later he does do it.
Yes. Okay, so part of it when he said no really did mean no, that he's not, but the other piece of his unconscious mind has come, I'm really gonna, I feel like I'm having this fun,
Or sometimes it can be like lately with doing his homework. I'll say, why don't you sit down and do your homework? And he'll go, and then he'll just go get his stuff and sit down and do it. And I'm going, okay, I'm beginning to see that there's a pattern for him saying no, but he gets the stuff and comes to do it. It's like I haven't picked up the subtlety yet of where he makes the agreement with himself to go do it.
Polarizing? Yeah, he loves to polarize right now.
Yes, most kids this age especially, are really into polarising. That's a way of sorting information.
So he does.
One point to another.
Why are you pointing at me?
You're in that spot.
Okay.
Most kids this age. The other day, I was screwing something, and
Take a little distance.
my son was talking to his mother, and she was saying yes to something, and she was going, yes, and he busted her on it. And she'd actually she was doing two things at once, and one of them, she was thinking about her husband and the relationship between the son and the husband and how negative it had been, and she was going like this. And he had asked her about something about, do you want to do something? And she said yes. And he said, well, why are you doing it? And I thought it was interesting in the film that they actually brought that out. She was doing two things at the same time.
Yes.
And one wasn't meta.
So it's important
It
to
was just simultaneous.
So then, noticing what came before it would help to make it clearer of what's actually going on.
Right, there was a carrier.
The importance always happens because the unconscious mind has an order. What is most important comes out first, and then what's secondary is coming out secondary. So if you're giving a person a set of alternatives to do something, you'll want to, especially somebody who polarises, right? You'll want to give that person what the alternative that you want them to do, give that to them first. And then the other alternative you don't want the person to do, give them to that last. Most of the person who is kind of a polariser will accept the first alternative. So make sure that the first alternative is the alternative they're wanting the person to do, actually. Okay?
So you say you can take the garbage out or not?
You take the garbage out or you
Or
can
clean up your room, and you only need the garbage taken out. So they say, okay, I'll take the garbage out.
You want the person to take the garbage out, and you're realising that they're going to be going, to play in their room, and their garbage is important to you. Then I would say, pick up the garbage on your way out to play in the room. Pick up the garbage here and deal with that, on your way out to play in the room.
Well, that's linking.
Right. Main thing is that whatever it is that's important, that you have the ability that, usually that's coming out first. It doesn't have
Why
to.
do you come and do this thing with me, or no, you don't really want to? Like I do that with people. They say, would you like to come and do this thing with me, or no? Oh yeah, I'll come and do it with you. You kind of satisfied that polarizing view.
So what is polarizing?
Not really
Couple times with me.
Let's see if we can keep it clear, for the people that are listening on the tape.
What is it that you have to give your first choice first, and when you give someone a choice of two things, give that to a person who polarizes, as opposed to a person who is not polarizing?
Okay, because person who polarises, this is their way of sorting information. You need to give them something that they can polarise with. Because then you're using their way of sorting information.
Also, you're saying that the person who doesn't polarize, you don't need to give them a choice.
You might not have to, no. But somebody who polarises, you may have to do that, to work with their way of sorting information. And also to create greater strength for something, that the person is feeling that they've had choice, Because if they're the kind of person that would ordinarily polarise when you would ask them for something, then giving them choice is taking them into a mode where they're taking them out of polarising. There's less opportunity to polarise when you're giving a person a couple of alternatives, because they don't want to do that and they don't want to do that either. See, that's a little more difficult.
It works great with kids.
So what is it? What is it about it that you put the thing that you want them to do first?
Simply because we all recognise that whatever comes out of somebody's mouth, in the order that it comes out, generally there's a set of importance.
So even the polarizer will recognise that?
Yeah,
And they'll be
We all recognise that simply when whatever is on a person's mind that comes out, has had a priority.
Okay, so that allows the polarizer, they get what you want them to do is the first thing you say, and given the second choice, it gives them an opportunity to reject that and take the first one.
Yes.
Got it.
Thank you. Good on you. That's excellent. Okay. Okay.
In detecting these kind of more things,
Yeah.
detecting these, this analog and all this, could you share with us maybe some quick
So for instance, let's just say that you're working with someone, that you're interested in them buying cash registers from you, okay, and you ask them a question, and you've asked a question beforehand, which is a no question, right? And you're asking a person to do that, they're wanting something, and you realise that they're using analog, which is involving no. They're talking about something, but they're using the analog that they use when they use the no question. It's likely that I would be tuned and realise that this is probably not something that the person's wanting, this thing that we're selling. But something else, a combination of something else probably is the answer.
A little deeper though, that's true, but
Okay.
they may be in agreement with me, but I haven't really found out by reading them if they sort by desire of gain or fear of loss. Is there a way of asking or eliciting that strategy from them?
Well,
And reading how they react to it, or?
yes, because in other words, somebody says, well, if I don't get this cash register, we're not going to be able to make the Christmas sales that I'm thinking that we would ordinarily. That's kind of about not making the Christmas sales, or it's about making the Christmas sales if we get the cash register. Mostly you'll be listening to the person, and you're asking the person a question which is asking them to speak about what their needs are. Mm-hmm. And so the person says, well, we want to get rid of the current system that we have, and we want to implement this new system because we're losing stuff on this other system. It's not taking care of everything. See, so the person's coming from limitation actually.
Right.
Okay, so that that's part of this person's processing style. That you're aware of this and you have the ability to use that.
That's always obstacles them. They recognize the gains, but in a lot of cases, they really move from fear of
You have
loss.
to work with what that person's model of the world is.
Exactly.
They may only be aware of 3 things out of 10. And if they knew the other 7, they really would be humming. However, they don't. They're only aware of 3 parts out of the 10. That you need to truly be working with those 3 components. And you're always learning the habits of others and using and applying those habits. Okay. So can you see the value of sometimes asking a person a question that they're going to say yes to, checking out and knowing what the analog of that is, and absolutely with children especially, you'll really get insight. Okay.
And if you want to ask them a question eventually to which you want a yes answer, it's nice to have them in a yes mode for a little while.
Exactly.
So that they're saying to themselves yes about something and then yes about something else. And
Okay,
when you say, is it now time to buy my product, they're already in the yes mode.
You may even use their analog, okay, for yes. So for instance, what we found out about D, when D is definitely a no with D, right? Her voice gets a little deeper. And then if it's yes, her voice gets a little higher. So what we know is about yes for D is it's involving the visual system, and no is involving more the kinesthetic system. So that you can get the idiosyncrasies of the way somebody says yes, the way somebody says no, and then you can be using those, okay, in the delivery of something to pace the person, okay?
Can you pace them by just reading the visual? And also being in the affirmative.
In other words, if I was speaking to D and I wanted her to say yes, I would say, would you like to? And I've given a yes analog actually.
Yeah,
Because if I said, would you like to? I mean, it's not going to, you know.
So you're saying mirror, it's good analog picking up on?
If anything that you pick up in this person's analog, good idea to be using that, you know, to pace the person's experience. Yeah. It's quite uncanny when you do this, when somebody does this. Like, would you like to? And we use the analog. I mean, Dee's going to be, no matter what it is, she's going to be saying yes.
It was Annie was sharing how her mom used to get it. Since we had the discussion about my child in Walmart, we've had zero, we've had ultimate success. And that was what you're saying, like, we're going to the grocery store now, I'm mad. And she looks at me, oh man, she does this to me all the time now. She looks at me and she goes, like this, and I was thinking she was mocking me, but maybe she is trying to meet that visual stimulation because it seems to really work. It's really
Yes, excellent. That's great. Yeah. So that was reframe.
I thought, she was looking at David the other day like this. And he asked me, he said, do I do that a lot? And I said, yeah, and so she looks at him and she smiles.
Closing her eyes.
Don't mock.
Not for fun.
Okay, just for the people on the tape, just to know what that was all about. Terry's young daughter was really throwing some tantrums when she would go to the supermarket. We were trying to figure out what Terry could do, and Annie suggested she remembered it going to the supermarket with her mum, and how her mum used to make a big deal about going to the supermarket, and how much of surprise and excitement and spontaneity and playful and adventure that there would be, you know, at the supermarket. And so Terry's used this approach and really had excellent success. Okay.
Now, back to our sponsor.
Okay, now when is lunch going to be today?
Whenever time you'd like.
Oh, really? I mean, how long would it take you to get ready?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay.
Whatever you like, we had 20 minutes.
Yeah, somewhat exact.
Now, how?
Twenty minutes will be too hot.
Should we like to break for lunch now?
It'll take 20 minutes.
So, meta programs basically deal with how we sort information and what our internal representation of things are to external stimuli. Most of us have preferences, matter of fact, for sorting information. And so meta programs basically are the types of sorting programs that your brain does in sorting through information. It's a sequence used to build a generalization, or you could say that it's an interface between external stimuli and internal response. Okay? So, as far as meta programs are concerned and strategies, you can listen into what the sensors are and what the representation is that people are using, because that more than likely will be a meta program, meaning a way that this person generally sorts information. So what would be an example of that?
Would you say the question again?
Just, that's what you mean, like seeing? Or,
Yes.
Okay, like using the verb see and
Yes, okay.
and color and to bright day and
Okay, so we would know that Jenny probably has a meta program of using the visual system, maybe in her decision-making strategy, so that just that you're understanding what meta programs are. Okay, so that's one way that you can get at meta programs. What's another way? Okay, so the sequence of accessing cues, whether a person is kinesthetic, auditory, or visual auditory kinesthetic. Most of our attorneys and people that go through the education system tend to be visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And geniuses, most of them tend to be kinesthetic, auditory, visual. So the sequence of accessing cues, that's a meta-program. And then the characteristics of the pattern, how the pattern works, what has to be there for the pattern to actually work, how the person gets into the pattern, whether or not a person using modal operators of necessity or modal operators of possibility, must, should, will, can't, won't, don't, are all modal operators of necessity. Is the person using modal operators of possibility? I wonder if, maybe we could, perhaps, framing it with a question and then making a statement, allowing the listener choice.
Where does I think or I guess come in?
I think or I guess is a modal operator of possibility, allowing the listener choice. So basically people have meta-programs for convincing others to action. Usually there'll be a way that people do that. Usually there's a way people convince themselves or motivate themselves to do things. There's meta-programs in the way that people learn new information. Each of us have. Libby and I talked about learning strategies, in the car on the way from the airport. Sometimes, whatever it is the situation is, always what's there is there because it's adaptive, and that there's something positive that's gained from it, even if it's not leading to what it is that you want. You could always know that's the case. So it's a good idea in that situation to be able to reframe, find what the meaning is, the positive intent behind the behaviour, and separate the intention from the behaviour, so that you're able to satisfy the intention. So people have major meta-programs for deciding or preferring and learning and taking new information in. Somebody might have a meta-program, for instance, if I was taking new information in, they might have a program, and this is quite a common one, where people are stuffing new concepts into some construct that they already understand. Like if somebody were stuffing NLP concepts into transactional analysis, for instance, trying to figure out how this relates to the parent, adult and the child in each of us or something, that might not be a very good strategy for taking in new information. Mostly when you're teaching somebody something, it's a good idea to elicit something that provides meaning of the information. That's more likely then that people will learn it. So, and that you have the ability to elicit some experience that the person has already had that makes sense. What you've said, it makes sense then. So that's the quickest way for somebody to learn something truly, is to draw on experience the person has already had. So the basic approaches to generalise meta-programs: is this person seeking pleasure? This is the basic wellness. Is the person seeking pleasure? Are they avoiding pain? Or is there pleasure avoidance? Or is there pain seeking? Okay, so there's you're wanting to make sure that people are seeking pleasure, in fact, in the programs and the way they're going about things, and that they're avoiding stuff they would love to avoid. But I'll bet you each of us know situations where people have been masochistic with themselves and felt that they needed to punish themselves actually for something. And so what you recognise in the meta-program is that it's possible the person has a program wanting to kind of hurt self in some way. So that would be pain-seeking rather than pain avoidance. So you'll get that information on page 51 of the Practitioner's Manual. And then there's some other information on pages 76 of the Technician's Manual, which we've already gone over in the weeks that have passed. We talked a little bit about meta-programs and sorting characteristics and patterns that people have. we talked about, for instance, somebody being a content sorter. You ask them something and then they go into what kinds of things were there at the time. They'll go back and retrace people that were there. They'll go back and talk about the topic or the subject that was happening at the time. They'll go back and talk about place. They may go back and talk about a time that something occurred. Mostly, many people actually are content sorters, sorting for the content actually. Another one, there's as many meta programs as there are people. So, somebody could be using a toward or an away from meta program. You understanding how that one might work? Give me an example.
I'm going to the beach, I'm leaving home.
Okay, so somebody really was going to the beach and they said to you, I'm leaving home, you would know they are using an away from meta program. It's more likely that this leads to dissociation in the person's behaviour. This always generally does.
So if you're moving away from a person, you're disassociated most of the time?
Yes. So then if I was working with this person and they said, well, I'm moving away from this, I would want to see if there's a way that I could fit in what this person's moving toward.
So the best thing to do would be, like for example, I notice that I do that a lot, and I also notice I am disassociated.
Yes, it leads.
So what I would do is say, when I think, I want to get out of debt, let's say I want to move towards prosperity, I just have to continue to catch that thought right there.
Yes, good idea to affirm it, because more than likely this will help bring to you what it is you're seeking. Yeah.
It's a real different feeling too when you just take a sentence about, if you say both of those sentences and then feel them, like that whole physiology of the words, they're very different to sort those two different ways.
Has everybody got this last one? Like if you hear somebody talking about moving towards something, bringing something to them, this is really quite a kind of a well strategy. And absolutely, if you hear somebody speaking in a manner that they're moving away from something, talking about getting rid of something, you can know that this generally, with what the person's talking about, is leading them more to be dissociated somewhat. Okay, because moving away from, or something that goes outside, is involving dissociation. Moving toward and within is association. So somebody could be active or passive, like you share something with the person and their way of sorting information is in a way that they're passively participating. Or the person is active, really wanting to be involved with something. Active or passive. Internal or external reference. Am I coming from my own experience, or has the doctor told me that in 2 months I'll be able to deal with this or something? And what is it that I say? If you say, well, how are you feeling, and when is it that you sense you're feeling well? And the person says, well, the doctor told me that in February, I can move off this medication. Well, that's external reference, and it may be excellent external reference. So sometimes, in some situations, it's a good idea to have an external reference. There may be a reason why there's a weaning of the medication off in February as opposed to the present time.
What's the false internal? It says be aware of the false internal.
Yes, like somebody who is like a walking encyclopedia, somebody who kind of is citing facts for things and that, and it's really, the person's basically insecure, and they're masking this by talking about the facts that they know and this sort of thing, like they're a walking encyclopedia. So it's basically a false external reference. The person actually may have internal reference more, or vice versa. Another one is somebody who is sorting for others, or they're sorting for themselves. That's quite a common one. Somebody comes to you to talk about some situation, and mostly they're sorting for others. They might not be actually sorting for themselves. Mismatch is a common one. Are people bringing up something which also matches what it is that's said, or is something coming up that kind of is said that mismatches? So that's a common one people get themselves into too, like polarization, similarity or difference. So that's an excellent one to develop the ability to sort for likeness. Another one would be something that the person wants and wants and needs, or going from something that's very specific to the general, or something that's very general to the specific. So that there can be patterns happening like that. The person actually has a meta program inside that's wanting to take something that's very general all the time and wanting to say something specific actually, or vice versa.
So speak a little bit about want and need.
So persons always focus on what is actually wanted, what we want, or what we need. So they're always like, people are talking and then they're figuring out what is it that you want actually. They might not be so concerned about what you've said. They're trying to figure out, I wonder what it is that Ali wants. So they're sorting for that things in that way.
For what I want, not necessarily what I need.
Maybe, or vice versa. The main thing is that they're sorting for what you need or what you want. So Jenny might share some story about something that she's doing, and I'm listening to her, trying to figure out what it is that Jenny wants and what Jenny needs. That would be, I'm sorting everything she's saying through this sense.
Towards what she wants.
And now meta programs can be excellent, and when meta program is not so excellent, it's usually because it's being used in a context that it might not readily lend itself. That's usually the case. It's being misused. So anyway, there's a number of others. We might just go through a couple more, and then what I'm going to have you do is you're going to get into groups of 3 again, and there's a page here which will enable you to ask people a question, and then they'll be answering the question, and you'll be tuning into what meta programs the person's using actually. But others certainly are, is the person's mind open or is the person closed to something? And they can be like a religious person, someone who's very religious, they might be just always open, closed, If, in other words, unless God is mentioned during the lecture, this person might think, well, these people are not very godlike, actually, so then they become closed to the information. And it's an open-closed kind of situation. Or somebody who is always talking about when something occurred, or how far back, or what time. So they're actually sorting everything through time. And unless this person sorted it through time, they might not be able to sort the information. Like you say, remember what occurred during that experience, and the person, the only way they can get back to it is to go back to a reference of time to get there. Subordination or prioritising, that's a common one. That prioritising, this really can get people into deep SH1T. When you say something is better than something else, we have to do this first before we do something else, and lastly we want to be responsible citizens. Another common way people do this is to list things, right? They might not have a hierarchy at all, but listing things tends to create hierarchy, when it's possible there might not be a hierarchy there at all. Is the person associated, or dissociated? Is the person polarizing in the way they sort information? Does the person give counter examples? And what does it take to convince somebody? All of these are leading to find out what a person's meta programs are. So, what I'd like you to do is you're going to get into groups of 3 again, and there's a list of questions on page 52 of the Practitioner's Manual. And so, for instance, you can ask a question like, what is your basic belief about playing? And then the person shares something with you about that. What most restricts your playing? Who is the most playful person that you know? Describe this person. What is something that you used to believe in?